Getting acquainted with a whole continent is not a simple job. The continent of South America is just about as big as continental United States and Canada together. Within this vast area live millions of people. Our film will introduce us to some of these South Americans. There are big modern cities where people work in business and industry. There are farmlands of many kinds where people work growing and harvesting crops. There are vast areas in South America where very few people live. Even as we watch our South American neighbors doing many kinds of work, and as we see the different products of the land, we will still be seeing only a small part of this vast continent. We can get better acquainted with South America by looking at the face of the continent, by getting some idea of the surface of South America. Let's see what kind of face South America has. First, 3 highland areas. 1, the Andes, a great mountain system, extends along the western edge of the continent. 2, the Guiana highlands in the north. And 3, the Brazilian highlands on the east. And among the highlands, 3 great river basins. 1, the Orinoco River Basin in the north. 2, the Amazon Basin, a great central lowland. And 3, the Parana Basin, drained by the Parana River, which empties into the Plata. And so, the face of South America has these main features: 3 lowlands and 3 great highland regions. Let's see how people live in these different regions. We'll start in the Andes. The Andean highlands contain some of the highest peaks and plateaus in the world. Here we'll find some of the most beautiful and least populated places in South America: majestic snow-covered peaks and deep mountain valleys. Thousands of feet above sea level is the altiplano, the high plateau where people live close to the clouds. On the altiplano there are villages like this one in Andean countries such as Ecuador or Peru or Bolivia. And cities too, some of the highest cities in the world. The growth of cities here has been partly hampered by the difficulty of transportation, which has long been a problem in the Andes. Today, more highways are being built across the rugged landscape. But for centuries, llamas have been and still are used for carrying goods. Some Andean people make their living providing such transportation. Many others raise sheep for wool and meat. Most of the Andean people, however, make a living by farming. These farmers are Indians. Indians make up a large part of the population of the Andean highlands. The Indians work hard, using primitive tools to make a living from their small farms. Still other people in the Andes make a living by mining minerals, such as copper and tin. Not all the Andean region is inhabitable. There are hot, barren deserts on the western slopes of the Andes. But most of the Andean region is cool, even though close to the equator. This stone marks the equator in Ecuador, the Andean country whose Spanish name means equator. As we can see, most of the continent is south of the equator. Let's move from the Andean highland to the lowland of the Parana Basin. Ships enter this region through the wide Plata, the river into which the Parana flows. The broad mouth of the Plata River, the Rio de la Plata, is one of the great gateways into South America. Into the Plata come ships of many nations. In big harbor cities such as Buenos Aires and Montevideo, manufactured products are imported into South America. Among the exports of South America are livestock products. This is a herd of beef cattle on the pampas, the broad grass-covered plains that are used for grazing both cattle and sheep. The western pampas are much like the Great Plains of the United States or Canada. The pampas include some of the Earth's finest farmlands. These farmers are harvesting corn. Corn and wheat are the important crops of the pampas. These scenes in Argentina look very much like those we might see in the corn belt of the United States. Much of the corn and wheat grown on the pampas is exported. From the pampas, farm products are sent to Buenos Aires, Montevideo, and Rosario. On the waterfront of Rosario, big ships are loaded with wheat from the grain elevators. Rosario is a big commercial city. It is sometimes called the Chicago of South America. Very different from modern Rosario is Asuncion on the Paraguay River. Asuncion, founded by the Spaniards in 1538, is the oldest permanent settlement on the Paraguay River. Spanish influence in the churches of Asuncion reminds us that much of South America was settled by the Spaniards. North of these big cities and the plains called the Pampas is the Gran Chaco, another part of the Parana lowland. In the Gran Chaco are vast regions of plains and scrub forest. In some places in the Chaco are forests of quebracho, a hard wood. Some men in the Gran Chaco make a living as lumbermen. Now let's move from the Parana lowland into the neighboring region, the Brazilian highlands. The arrow points to the edge of the highlands, where the Iguazu Falls drop into the Parana basin. Higher and broader than Niagara Falls, the Iguazu Falls someday may be harnessed for power, although there are no big cities nearby today. Much of the tropical Brazilian highland, with its resources of soil, minerals, and forests, is undeveloped. In the remote regions of this area, people live very simply, farming small patches of ground. Vast stretches of the Brazilian highlands are grassy plains called the campos. The campos are grazing lands. But because much of this region is hot and humid, only certain breeds of cattle do well here. Brahman cattle and related breeds can withstand the heat and tropical diseases of the campos. Ranches in Brazil may remind us of those in North America. Cattle ranching is a leading occupation in much of the South American continent. On the Brazilian highlands, a very important activity is growing coffee. On this huge coffee farm, or fazenda, men are picking coffee berries. In recent years, more and more cotton is being grown on the Brazilian highlands. New lands are being cleared to plant more cotton because Brazil sometimes has a surplus of coffee. Almost half the coffee in the world is grown in this area in southeastern Brazil. Much of it goes by rail to the seaports of Santos and Rio de Janeiro. Trainloads of coffee are delivered to the port cities to be shipped overseas. This is a wharf in Santos, an important shipping center of South America. Rio de Janeiro, or Rio as it is often called, is another big port on the Atlantic. It is also one of the most beautiful cities in South America. People come from many parts of the world to vacation along Rio's famous beaches. We could take a plane from Rio and go to another important region of South America. We could fly from Rio northward to the city of Belém, at the edge of the Amazon lowland. Now, over the Amazon lowland, we see a green, thick tropical forest. The Amazon is one of the most important features of the continent of South America. Boats on the Amazon River carry the products of the Amazon forests. Products such as these Brazil nuts. Other products of the Amazon forests are lumber and small amounts of raw natural rubber. Much of this rubber is sold to the United States. Natural rubber is collected by men who live in the interior of the Amazon Valley. In some very remote places in the Amazon region, primitive Indians live. Even when we leave the hot Amazon lowland and go north of the equator to the Guiana highlands, we are in tropical lands. Mountains and hills of the Guiana highlands rise out of the tropical forests. Because the rough highlands are difficult to penetrate, we'll find most people living in the lowlands near the coast. Georgetown is a city on the coast of British Guiana. Westward from the highlands is the Orinoco Basin. Like the Amazon lowland, the Orinoco lowland is a hot, humid region. Boats on the Orinoco River carry products of this region. The grassy plains of the Orinoco are called llanos, or in Spanish, llanos. Herds of cattle here remind us again of the importance of grazing in South America. Other people work in the big cities of the north, cities such as Caracas in Venezuela. Here are modern buildings, busy traffic, factories, and working people. These too are an important part of South America. Getting acquainted with a whole continent is not a simple job. We saw three great highland regions. We saw three great river basins, or lowlands. In these different regions, we saw people making their living from the land in many different ways. We saw something of the commerce of South America and how many people make a living handling the products that are exported from the continent, as well as the products South America buys from other countries. As we study and read more about South America, we'll learn of the many other ways people there earn a living. In our film, we were introduced to some of the big cities of South America. As we become better acquainted, we'll learn that some of the big cities, such as the new city of Brasilia, are the capitals of countries. We've had an introduction to the people of these countries by seeing something of the great continent in which they live. The continent of South America.